we're just getting started. So am I still waiting?
And you can see Scott Plesky really put together.
Waiting for my man.
And we have landed in March of 2002, the date of the WWF draft, where members of the roster are being sent off to war. Conscription in the air in the United States of America. Destination, Penn State University. I am John Pollock, alongside the man that just defies everything, Wai Ting. Dude, how do you do this? I say this so often, but I marvel at your ability to do as much as you do. And somehow, the last we had spoken was 1 a.m. We are several hours removed. You've not only completed all your regular duties, but then you fit in 90 minutes. I hope you got some rest. I hope you got some food, maybe some meditation in there as well. How do you do all of this?
I guess the simple answer is, like, I'm a very last minute person. I've always been, throughout my entire life. But if I'm tasked to do something, I will find some way to finish it. So, I mean, I started this, like, this was not that bad. It was only a 90-minute thing, like the really tough ones are like, if I have to go through, I have to do a lot more planning if it's like a 3-hour show or something like that. But for something like this, in with an era that like I kind of know, decently well anyway, that doesn't require at least a ton of extra, research. It was more than fine. I watched like pretty much an hour of it last night and then finished it off with a half hour today.
And where did you locate this show, Wai?
Through your Daily Motion link. So thank you very much for that.
I hate Daily Motion.
Oh,
am I
it's
doing
awful.
something wrong? Or this is just because I have searched for like ad blockers that are just like pretty much just bordering on the dark web to deal with.
Yeah. If YouTube is like, sort of like, I would say like the standard. I mean, Daily Motion really is like, the dark alley that like somebody would have to stumble through.
This is their business model. It's just ad interruptions, and it's like every 3 minutes, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you can
It's brutal.
like they're pretty much are to my knowledge very few rules. Like I guess you probably can't upload like porn on there or something like that, but like you could get away with a lot, and including obviously copyrighted stuff. However, at least at the time that people might be listening to this podcast in the U.S. at least, you might still have access to the show through Peacock.
Yes.
So enjoy that for maybe the next 2 weeks, and then you'll get to join the rest of us internationally on Netflix that have very sparse access to raw archives on that platform.
Yeah, not the most enjoyable experience on Daily Motion, but that said, a relatively easy watch otherwise. But we are heading back to the site of the draft. So to set everything in motion, the invasion angle comes to a screeching halt at the previous year's Survivor Series, which Vince McMahon comes out the night after the October pay-per-view and basically says, it's time to end this. That's it. It's over. We're done. Let's just squeeze out one more pay-per-view. It's pretty much just, let's get through this fucking thing, okay? Yeah. It was such a painful build-up to what should have been the ultimate storyline and was anything but. And so it ends. We still have 2 titles in circulation. Chris Jericho becomes the undisputed champion at the December pay-per-view. And then there was the discussion of having this brand extension, like a redo, where, well, the problem with the invasion wasn't our creative direction. It wasn't any of that. It was no one believes in WCW. No one believes in ECW. They need powerhouses going at it. There's no one to oppose WWF more so than WWF itself. We could have Raw versus SmackDown. That will really engage people. So this goes back to the Ric Flair, Vince McMahon program, which leads to the two ending up with control of opposing shows. So I think in storyline at this point, Vince had no control over Raw, but he was the head of the company. But on the show, it's just SmackDown at this point, I believe. Like he is not Ric Flair's superior, is he?
So they had already split the ownership of the brands, or at least control the brands between each other, right?
Well, he was part of the consortium, right? When Flair comes in, and they're 50-50 partners.
They had a moment where they were co-GMs, right? Weren't they? On these shows?
Yes. This is after the Survivor. This is the night after Survivor Series when Flair comes in. It's a very truncated explanation that the control of the company that Vince had won at the Survivor Series has been split because it was put into a consortium that was Ric Flair. So Vince wins nothing at the Survivor Series. He wins half of his company.
He won like the oustering of Stephanie and Shane.
And the Alliance. Like they were all supposed to be out of work. And every single one of them came back. So dude, it was dog shit. Okay. Can we just summarize it as it was dog shit? They are in control.
Like that's been historically acknowledged. Yeah.
Yes. So it leads to our draft where we are going to split the rosters into Wai as a 16, 17-year-old at this time. Your reaction in real time to the announcement of a draft and separating the shows with roster specific talent and what your optimism level was so quick after the invasion that, man, maybe they can get this right when it's in-house, so to speak.
Well, I was excited personally. You know, I at least wanted to see some sort of like shakeup. Again, for lack of a better term, because they would go on to essentially call these shakeups. I felt like the show was needing some form of better structure when you have just like so much extra talent, you know, coming in from the invasion. And just, you know, to me, the product felt a bit stale. And I really wanted to see what they would be able to do with some sort of like attempt at a focused, you know, singular show with a roster that might actually get a bit more airtime. So I was personally excited to see what would happen.
I think everyone was like hopeful. I think just the concept of a draft was really intriguing to me as just like, I wasn't the world's like biggest hockey fan, but I loved the draft every year. I found it so fascinating that you had like all these deals that are being made on the floor. It's this big deal about as they approach the podium, who are they going to go with? It lent itself into such a kind of sports environment for a company that didn't really go so far into that. And I think watching the show, there was a lot missed in terms of that opportunity. And that was one of my biggest issues with the
show. Sports.
Exactly. Seriously? I mean, this is a draft constructed by people that I don't think had any understanding of kind of all the intricacies that you could do and that was throughout the whole period of this, like doing trades, doing like free agency. It just became a convenient out for them to just move somebody to a new brand and such.
I mean, I think you can watch this and clearly, primarily in Vince McMahon, you know, tell that this is not necessarily influenced by sports other than in name, you know, like this is a draft and this is really like, so sports drafts are typically, involving like rookies, free agents, people that aren't currently in the league, right? This is drafting. Essentially, you're picking teams, like in a schoolyard, you know, game of whatever, basketball or baseball, and really it's just a draft by name. And the concept of like doing trades and all that, that's stuff they would go on to play with later on. But this is still like in the world of sports entertainment, more just a vehicle for their own sort of like in 2002 fucking batshit crazy type of storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, from the get go, you could see the holes that would come out of this. But I think generally there was an interest just because this had never been done before in the company, and like this was all the kind of ideas you had hoped would be that would materialize with the invasion. That, you know, you were feeling like they never split the shows, they never split the rosters.
They wanted to.
They wanted to. Like these were all the ideas they had. And then,
that Bagwell and Booker T happened.
They ruined it in Tacoma, and thus we got what we did. So this was sort of like okay, maybe they've regrouped and they will have a better battle plan here. So to start off this edition of Raw back in the 2-hour format, we have, you have to start this off with a bang. You need somebody that can convey the conviction of how significant this is, someone with a charisma, maybe a future politician, to outline what it is we're about to see tonight.
Good evening. Tonight, we will witness the first ever World Wrestling Federation draft. Vince McMahon will represent SmackDown. Ric Flair will represent Raw. In the interest of time, only 20 picks will actually be made live tonight. A lottery will be held immediately following Raw on WWF.com to determine placement of all other World Wrestling Federation performers. The result of tonight's historic draft becomes effective on next week's Raw. However, because of the triple threat WWF Championship match tonight, neither Triple H, Chris Jericho, nor Stephanie McMahon is eligible to be drafted. And due to a contractual clause, Stone Cold Steve Austin is not eligible to be drafted either. Mr. Austin is therefore declared a free agent, able to sign with either SmackDown or Raw. Thank you for your attention this evening, and best of luck to all the World Wrestling Federation superstars.
So that was representing the Department of Education, the charismatic enigma. I swear to God, this photo that Wai has up here, you could tell me this was right out of a year ago when she was playing the zombie in the wheelchair, and she has the exact same vacant stare into all of our souls. Shout out to whoever decided to throw out the what in the midst of this speech by Linda McMahon after mentioning Steve Austin, who had, this was the forgotten period that Austin went home after WrestleMania 18 and then comes back the next week, and it's sort of just this little hiatus is not really remembered because the more public one occurs in June where he's gone for the rest of the year. But that is explaining Austin's absence. And at this point, like, they were just trying to basically reconcile with Austin, and then he would show up on the following week's Raw, which that roster sorely needed someone of that star power. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was always designed like this would be Rock and Austin carrying these two sides going into this.
Sure. Yeah. It added a certain mystery element to this draft, not knowing where exactly Steve Austin would end up. So I thought, like, playing with that hand that they were dealt, I thought they probably rolled it in as best as they could. In this portion, having Linda McMahon show up here, I mean, I continue to praise Jack Tunney's in his role as just this figurehead who, is certainly not the most like pro wrestling type of speaker. But then there's Linda McMahon, who I think probably goes a bit too far in the anti-charisma department where,
ladies and gentlemen, we've got a draft tonight.
Very good. You need
to imagine Linda and Jack together as an on-screen couple. Those were the GMs we should have had for this brand extension.
I think you at least need a little bit of energy to sound authoritative, and Linda always lacked that. So, but at the very least,
she'd never need to be in a leadership position in the future. That's what you have A1 technology for.
Sounded like an A1 influenced speaking style right there. I would have suggested from this opening scene, they were trying to make some attempts at making this feel realistic, feel sports-like. Okay,
we had the war rooms, we had the talent that were all huddled into the locker room waiting to hear their names drafted.
We're taking the main event out of this because we have a world championship match. Then she announces the world championship match, and I'm like, okay, what a wake up call into
gotta balance this all.
What a sobering reminder of what era we were just supposed to step into.
We need the credibility of this draft. Obviously, we cannot draft these participants who are in the title match. Oh, and Stephanie's going for the title tonight. That's it.
Says Stephanie McMahon attempting to win the WWF World Championship.
So there's a time in their history they might have done the title switch with Stephanie.
I don't doubt that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So listen to this from The Observer. Raw on March 25th did a shocking 5.41 rating. What does a 5.41 rating correlate to in 2002? 6.9 million viewers.
Yeah.
That's incredible. The highest rating for the show since Rock returned the previous summer. Unlike the previous week, which was coming off of WrestleMania. This was a higher rating that they did. It was, from a news standpoint, the biggest show in a long time, but the ratings pattern showed it was more the idea that Stephanie may win the title than the draft that was the draw. Not that the draft wasn't strong, nor Hulk Hogan, but it was a 6.3 rating for the main event. That was a number that had to be considered astonishing. It was, after all, the drafting was over, and it had been made clear that the draft was over. So, I mean, we can say whatever we want about the Stephanie deal, but the fact of them, promoting a title match, it seems kind of like that's a big deal today because it's very rare they do a title match on TV. It was not so out of the norm in 2002. It's also the WrestleMania main event a week later in Jericho and Hunter, but Stephanie's part of this equation for sure. Like this main event, it did like that. That's extraordinary, even in 2002 when, it is a year that you're looking at things going down, but it still tells you like the ridiculous numbers they were still acquiring in the early portion of 2002. This would decline heavily throughout the year.
And not to mention, really at this point, I would still consider the infancy of the internet. I mean, most of what we were doing was certainly not watching video. It was like we were probably on ICQ, and that only took up so much of your time.
So we now go into the draft, and after Linda McMahon addresses the troops, Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler open the show. We get our cutaway to WWF New York. We will get to later who was on WWF New York duty for the night. And the added stipulation that if Stephanie gets pinned, she must leave the WWF.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was probably maybe even a bigger draw than the possibility of her winning the championship, knowing that this would be, at least for now, her write-off from the show.
And then it was, how many matches can we cram into this 2-hour window? We start off with Tazz and Mr. Perfect. What a 2002 time capsule of WWF. Mr. Perfect comes out. This is, far enough removed from his quite the big return at the Royal Rumble. They leave him in until the Final Four. And, it was thought coming out of that Royal Rumble that, man, this guy's going to get a bit of a run here in the company. Like they protected him in the Rumble. And he quickly becomes pretty much a Sunday Night Heat performer.
Yeah, yeah.
And he'd be gone by May after the tussle with Brock Lesnar on a flight.
Well, it's very clear from this point that they have their eye on the people that they actually wanted to push, and whether it be due to age or the fact that he already had his run, or maybe did he leave with a lot of tension with the company, or would you say no? What do you say?
I mean, they had set him up for several returns, both in 94 when he does the angle at WrestleMania 10, and then when in 96 after he's the broadcaster, and he ultimately goes to WCW in 97. So I never sensed there was bitterness with Mr. Perfect, but the main hook was, let's remember, in late 2001, the XWF is this project of Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart's, and their two main stars were Hogan and Curt Hennig. And surprise, surprise, they grab Curt Hennig, and it's a blow to the XWF. And I think it was more so, it was just a defensive maneuver on their part to just hurt this potential upstart at the time. And of course, Hogan follows as well, and the XWF becomes nothing. And I think they brought him in, they showcased him at the Rumble, and then they had no plan for him afterwards. And quite frankly, I don't know how much you could have done with Mr. Perfect in 2002.
I mean, seeing his ability to move, even at this point, I would have suggested a whole lot. But again, Vince always is on a bit of a youth movement type of kick, and I don't think Perfect really fit into his plans. Although, his return at this point really told you how much a name could mean for somebody. Because I mean, just for years as Curt Hennig, while in WCW, just did not have that same luster, did not have the same sort of certainly nostalgia attached to it. I mean, and look, he was essentially the same guy in wrestling, probably the same abilities as well. But without the name, he just did not feel the same.
Is it wild, Way, that we are going from the 1991 Survivor Series to an era of WWF where they're going to do Hogan and Undertaker on an upcoming pay-per-view, and we've got Ric Flair and his flight landing executive consultant all on the same show.
It's pretty crazy. Again,
all we were missing was Jake and Randy here with a python.
It's crazy to me that it's only been 11 years between our last review of Survivor Series 91 to this point. It's nuts. Not even.
And a very, very different company, even though similar players as well in those examples.
Yeah.
So Ross mentions, again, the champions are also ineligible tonight, and a perfect refers to himself as the perfect pick. Would he be the perfect pick? Would he be drafted on the show? No, he would not. He would be, like many, waiting afterwards to refresh WWE.com.
WWF.com.
WWF.com, you're right. Tazz hits a suplex, perfect plex, but Tazz grabs the rope and Tazz mission for the win. Mr. Perfect taps out in 1 minute and 53 seconds. He tries to protest the ending, and it's like, no, that's it. And Tazz says that the perfect pick became just another victim. From past and future WWF broadcasters, Tazz comes out on top.
Oh, that's right. And John didn't necessarily truncate any of that recap. That is pretty much exactly every move that took place in this match. The wrestling on the show, couldn't have felt more irrelevant to the entire production. I mean, like, we've had great wrestling in this era of Raw. Certainly, like, look back to the year prior with like the Benoit Jericho, a run. What would come later with like the SmackDown 6 and everything. But on this show, it was going to take a backseat to just Vince McMahon and Ric Flair interactions and really just anything but in-ring.
It's hard to even call some of these matches. It's really a sequence of spots with an ending. And that's as best you can tell for a lot of these matches at the time. Like, there's no premium here on anything.
And this one in particular, like Hennig versus Tazz, that actually, like, in the early 2000s, like late 90s era, where you can argue both are still like very, very capable. Like, that's one that you would have asked, man, what if these two had like 10 to 15 minutes on a pay-per-view uninterrupted, but instead we had 2 minutes of just really nothing here.
Ric Flair's in his war room with Arn Anderson, and Arn is explaining we need an A plan and a B plan. Arn Anderson, I mean, guy that was just born 50 and looks identical. Flair has had some physical transformations over the years.
So these days, like getting hair implants, going to Turkey, that seems to be a big thing. Cena has been very upfront about it. Can you imagine, like, if Arn Anderson grew up in this particular era and had that option? Like,
can you imagine Arn Anderson getting into the industry over the last 10 years? Like, this Arn Anderson, and he's got to have like a social media strategy, and he's got to come up with t-shirts, and he's going to start a podcast to get indie bookings, and he's going to do viral spots. He's going to do GCW.
No, something tells me this man would be trying to find another line of work, I think.
Be in the Nick Gage Invitational. I mean, Arn Anderson of the 2020s would have been quite the run. So they explained they're not going to back down from Vince McMahon. And we conversely go to McMahon's war room, where his assistant for the night is Kurt Angle. And he shows a file here on his desk as he's going through the files.
Yeah.
McMahon comes out to make the first pick, and the crowd is booing him. He explains he beat Ric Flair in the coin toss. I guess we'll just take his word for it that there was a coin toss. This is peak what era, although I could argue the same today. I mean, there's plenty of it, but it was much fresher in 2002. And he makes his pick, The Rock, his first overall pick. And The Rock, I loved how every single person that got drafted, when we went to the back, every single one of them looked a combination of surprised and pissed. Like, what were the expectations for tonight? It is the draft, and you're the first overall pick. It doesn't get any higher than that.
The idea is that the baby faces wanted to go with Flair and the heels wanted to go with McMahon. And so if you were getting an opposing, side, I guess you had to act pissed off. Yeah. Okay. Just like, what
do you think poor Spike was thinking here?
He's thinking, yes, I get to be in the background on TV.
Shut the fuck up, Dwayne.
He's thinking, how long I have to work in this industry before I can go, what is he now? What does he do now?
Spike?
Yeah.
Not wrestle. That's
what does he do for a living?
He was a teacher for a period. I don't know. I know he's done some interviews recently. I don't know what he's up to now, but out of wrestling.
He seems very healthy in the times that we've.
He showed up at Bound for Glory. We saw him at Bound for Glory. So McMahon says that there are now, or Rock comes out And McMahon explains that there are new rules on SmackDown. You cannot put your hands on me. You cannot tell anyone to put their foot up anyone's candy ass. He is barred from cutting people off with "it doesn't matter," and explains that you have a lot in common with your new friend, Hulk Hogan. You both have massive egos. I made Hulk Hogan, and I made you. I brought you into this world, and I can take you out of it. And Rock, instead, goes through his history on Raw, from teaming with Mick Foley to putting McMahon's face up Rikishi's ass. All the highlights of this.
They
of this
mentioned
run.
that several times on this show. Like, and it's I know people have like Vince has probably stuck his face in many people's asses over the years, but this one was one they were really kind of like celebrating as this like big recent monumental moment in WWE history.
It had been relatively recent that they did it, but it wasn't like it was a week or two ago. It was like a few months before this. But yeah, this was brought up a lot, to the point that you'd almost assume this was going to be put into the opening of the show. So he says, now you're taking The Rock away from Raw. Says, you never made Hogan. You never made Rock. Even The Rock's genitalia.
No, The Rock's parents.
Sorry,
genitalia.
the Rock's parents' genitalia didn't even make The Rock. The people made him. And he mentions Beaver Stadium. He puts over Penn State University and their chant, "We are Penn State." So The Rock comes up with his own chant for Vince McMahon.
Whoa, this is Vince McMahon. You have pride. You keep that sumbitch going.
Proctologist convincing.
Now, Wai, I have done some interesting technology here. This is how this would go when this is uploaded onto Netflix. You're
way quicker on the button than I think Netflix typically is. I think they just bleep out the whole thing. Can you not say asshole on Netflix?
I don't think we get asshole chants all that much. It's like we get.
Wait a second. That's isn't that Ciampa's whole thing?
Jackass.
I guess. Oh, jackass. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you not say asshole? Okay. Well,
I don't know how well it's been tested. We know that there are limits on the F word.
2002 was a very different time. Okay, we got an intergender match in the main event of tonight.
Oh yeah. Babyface is just attacking their spouse. I mean, it's all for equality here in the main event. But I really felt Rock really wanted to make this a thing, like the Vince McMahon chant that would follow, and it really didn't. It was like,
I mean, I felt it was a pretty specific Penn State, parody that was introduced.
But you could have seen crowds taking this one. I could have seen
possibly. Everybody's looking for their next what chant.
They went nuts for this though. Like this was like Rock having this crowd in the goddamn palm of his hand for this entire segment out here, and it was quite the promo segment.
It was really an incredible showing from The Rock of his ability to command these crowds. I mean, I did feel like by this point the babyface rambling promos of The Rock's were, to me, getting quite old, and I kind of feel it might have even contributed to a bit of just the pro Hogan reaction at Mania. The fact that, this babyface version of The Rock was, hadn't really evolved maybe in some time. But, man, it was still an act that was still working on occasions like this, Being able to know the Penn State thing well enough to be able to turn their home chant into a unique asshole loop. I think that's some incredible crowd control on display. And I know we're talking about Vince McMahon show in 2025. I'm here to talk about the performances. I thought Vince did a good job playing this cartoonish villain to serve up the scene for The Rock.
In many ways, Vince makes this segment. It's his selling of the chants. Like he's about to just have a gasket and storms off. Like his selling of the chant and Rock is kind of what puts this one over the top. Like he's a ridiculous performer that is just so over the top here that it really makes the segment with these two.
Yeah, very good counter to what Dwayne brought.
This is as close as they could have come to an unfortunate Jerry Sandusky or Joe Paterno reference at Penn State University. That would not age all that well had it been mentioned here at Penn State. But Rock does his sign off and says that, McMahon just storms off as Rock does his sign off, and that's it, but not the end of Rock for the evening. Flair comes out, and with his first pick, he says, despite my personal differences, such as my draft pick going to a OVW training center to bludgeon my son a month ago, I draft The Undertaker. And, of course, The Undertaker throws a fit backstage. God damn! Look at The Undertaker, like the dye job here. I mean, what crisis is this man going through at the age of 37 here?
He's evolving, okay? And he's evolving from, I suppose, I don't know, listening to like your favorite goth band to now Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit.
It's like he's been he went from the Kid Rock phase and now it's like, Slipknot.
Yes.
Maybe. So the Undertaker gets drafted. So we McMahon is furious after every pick. Like his idea was that like Flair's going to draft Spike Dudley and then he's going to draft Perry Saturn. So every single pick, McMahon's like, God damn it. I wanted everybody. It's so ridiculous. Like he's upset about the concept of what this thing is. It's a draft.
It's almost like he's a villain that we're supposed to see get upset.
Are you mocking me? So McMahon is upset. Kurt Angle enters and he's upset. He was not the first pick and said that he threw Flair a swerve. So the Undertaker storms in. You said this wouldn't happen. Yes, what are you going to do about it? Well, the answer was he did nothing about this because the Undertaker goes to Raw, although he's on SmackDown by like the summer. So
that's the thing about all of this is you had even The Rock like give his big like what sounded like almost like a heartfelt goodbye to Raw, recounting all of his like great memories. And the guy would he'd win the championship.
Do you know when we see Rock the next time on TV?
On Raw, you mean? Or SmackDown?
Period.
Oh, period. Was it on Raw?
He shows up back on, I don't know if he's on this week's SmackDown, but he goes away to film, and his return is on Raw the week after Austin walks out.
So he showed back up on Raw before
he comes back on Raw. Yes.
That's hilarious.
So McMahon is dealing with The Undertaker. He says he will make it right. I give you my word. And it took a few months, but he did hold it to his word here. He got The Undertaker on SmackDown. Edge and DDP against Christian and Booker T. With the sounds of Never Gonna Stop Me by Rob Zombie.
Yep.
This probably wouldn't have made the WWE Network cut, so we do get Rob Zombie here.
Are you sure this wasn't the WWE Network cut?
I don't know if it was.
We didn't get Hendrix on this one.
Oh, you're right. We didn't. Yeah, you're probably right. This might have been the network cut. Maybe Rob Zombie skirted through. So to set this one up, we have an angle. Kurt Angle attacks Edge, costing him a match with Booker T on SmackDown last week. Meanwhile, Christian interfered, costing DDP a match with William Regal on the same episode. Sounds like a dynamite episode of SmackDown to have watched.
This was still part of the sort of trail of WrestleMania 18, was it not?
These were separate singles matches: the shampoo match and the tantrum match with DDP beating Christian. In Toronto. Yeah.
And so for Paige, maybe people are just, interested because I don't know how many people will remember any of this, but with Paige, obviously, probably
this guy was headlining a WCW pay-per-view a year before this. And here we are 1 year removed. And
a lot has happened to him in 1 year. Okay. Came in as the Sarah Stalker, stench that will live with him forever for the rest of his life. And then they tried to rebrand him as an overly positive, motivational speaker type of character, Positively Paige. And that's sort of the gimmick he's still riding right now. Really just, I think, almost like a last gasp before really fading into irrelevance.
This is kind of the tail end of his WWE tenure. So all that's at half my notes here. We're just recapping all the run-ins on SmackDown to set up this 2-minute tag match where Christian stops Paige by snapping his throat on the rope. And he avoids a scissor kick, hits a diamond cutter to Booker, but then Christian saves, hits the unprettier, and it's Edge hitting a spinning heel kick that sends Christian to the floor, and this time Booker hits Page with the scissor kick, and Booker pins DDP in the battle of former WCW champions. 2 minutes and 9 seconds.
It kind of gives you a bit of an idea of like maybe, okay, here are the two top guys that WCW, that were brought in from WCW for this invasion. And at the end of it all, like they're basically slotted in what you might suggest an upper mid card, role next to Edge and Christian. So you can reach the very top in WCW, but that really only gets you towards maybe an IC title level here in the WWE.
Yeah, and certainly this draft, Edge comes out of this a big winner with the draft. Like he is getting now more of a serious singles run with this draft. He does get hurt a few months after this, but overall, he's on the superior show, and I think he ends up having a very good 2002 because of this brand extension that maybe he has in the prior era, but he gets a lot more focus on SmackDown.
He's the big project, you could say,
yes,
of all the young guys on the show. Yeah.
Angle is back with Vince. There were like 5,000 segments with Vince and Angle. He lists off all his accolades, why he should be drafted. And Vince says, well, if Flair chose The Undertaker, why wouldn't he choose my NWO next? I mean, that one statement alone, there's your answer of why the NWO just died a death in this company. My NWO. Angle tells him to forget about the NWO. They could draft me next. So Vince declares his next pick is Kurt Angle and says he loves Vince, but you should have picked me first. So,
Angle's reaction to getting picked was so great. He's like, yes. He gives Vince a big hug. He's like a little kid in a 60s sitcom in how innocent he is here. I just wish this level of communicability was present in anybody other than somebody who was also one of the greatest in-ring performers of this era. Because
you realize this guy 6 months ago was the badass babyface winning the title after 9/11 in his hometown, and this is where we're back to with Kurt Angle by 2002.
I kind of completely forget that because he went back and forth so much. I mean, he kind of was this same character, tied to Austin as part of this alliance thing, and then tried to get serious with him for 9/11, and then he just kind of went back to this bread and butter.
The invasion and that Survivor Series. I mean, he shifted back and forth. I think it really did a number on him.
And then he was going to shift back again. Next year.
I mean, he does have a really great 2002 as well, but this is pre bald Kurt Angle, which is going to come up because him and Edge are about to have a really great 2-month program to kind of kick off this invasion period or this brand extension period. Yeah. Flair comes out, and wouldn't you know it, he drafted Vince's NWO, where we learn all of them come as a package deal. Not the Dudleys, not any other groupings, but the NWO are all one package together.
They certainly have been somewhat pretty inconsistent about these sort of things. In subsequent drafts, even certain factions can get drafted together, others are eligible to be split. So the Dudleys, I think, needed better paperwork. It sounds like.
Yeah, both with this and the rights to their name that they thought they had when they left WWE. Yeah. Remember that? Mm-hmm. McMahon. Totally rational reaction to this. He's like, those are the rules. No, he's pissed. And he is determined to sign Steve Austin. That's in his back pocket. Angle has an idea because someone's coming back soon. I just saw him last week. He's ready. And he whispers the name into Vince's ear, and Vince picks Chris Benoit. And
I totally forgot who they were building up to in this reveal. I thought, oh, okay, what, is it Brock Lesnar? No, they picked somebody.
Would Netflix censor this?
Quite a bit more taboo than even that. Would they censor that?
Just says redacted over his lips as he reads out the name here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what we can read from this. Number one, when this happened at the moment, this was first of all, this was a big sign that they're bringing back Benoit in a major role. First of all, that was the first. They're putting this guy. Let's remember from a actual standpoint. you are kind of slotting your biggest stars and where you're positioning them.
Oh my God, this is
on the totem pole.
totally-
You're putting Benoit above Hogan. You're putting Benoit over a lot of major guys. So it told you, like, man, they have big plans for Benoit when he's coming back. And second is you're suddenly looking at this 3 picks in and you're saying, whatever else they draft, SmackDown looks fucking awesome. And when would we see Chris Benoit?
I don't know, July, June.
He shows up in June on
Raw.
He comes back on Raw.
Yeah. Well, listen, that this is where the trades come in, right?
It wasn't. I don't even think they explained it because then he gets moved to SmackDown like a month later.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think back. So he was with Eddie was also on Raw.
Yes.
Eddie was not part of this. He just kind of showed up.
No, he just shows up the next week as like a signing on Raw.
Did they bring somebody to, like, was Jericho moved?
Jericho was on SmackDown and then got moved to Raw.
For Eddie and Benoit. He got traded with Christian, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, like, Jericho moved back to Raw at the same time Eddie and Benoit went to SmackDown. But why Benoit went to SmackDown, maybe they had some explanation we don't remember right now.
So again, this is March 25th. Benoit's 3 months away from coming back. So Kurt Angle not exactly putting any wrestling reporters out of business with his sleuthing here of I've heard some things. He's about ready to come back.
But it was definitely a big indicator of how much they wanted to push Benoit at the time. Being
Huge.
drafted 5th overall, right above, underneath Angle and the NWO and above Hogan. That's incredibly high for somebody like him. So, I mean, he had left, I think, like, kind of in that position. Like, you could tell that they were trying to set up some sort of title program with him and kind of left prematurely, but they wanted to slot him right back into that role.
The NWO meet with Ric Flair. They won't be told what to do. We only listen to Vince. Flair calls them poison, which you just drafted these guys. I don't know what to tell you. And you now work for me. Nash explains, no, we work for Vince. This left everyone just as confused about this whole draft and who works for who. Like, is Vince in storyline still the owner of the company that they are reporting to? Or are these guys just, they don't understand how this works?
Maybe, I think the suggestion is that they're loyal to Vince and therefore they will only choose to listen to him. But Flair technically has their contract. So they're just suggesting they're going to be disobedient.
Do you remember how this NWO is disbanded?
Yeah, with Nash tearing his quad in the ring, and then just like it's done.
Vince comes out and basically his promo is it's run its course. And the NWO is disbanded. Like, he just announces it like flippantly in a promo. Like, that's the end of the NWO. It's actually even more baffling than the Invasion when you think about it.
It's really just more of a sign of just how, even in this incarnation. Okay, so Hogan, because he turned babyface with The Rock, was ousted from the group the night after that, so the week prior from this, and so to replace him they put X-Pac in, and of course, like, he fits, right? Former member, part of the clique, all that.
He can take pins and he can bump for us in these multi-mans. Like, there's a great value to Sean Waltman here.
But in terms of, I'm sorry, the threat and the star power that, like, this group was supposed to be billed as, like, even trying to position them as poison, hardly something that I think you could buy even in this incarnation, especially seeing how somebody like Nash was moving at this point, like Hall, like maybe more mobile of the two, but not by that much more.
We're like 6 weeks away from Scott Hall getting fired as well.
Oh,
so there's that.
And then you do the big show, you throw Shawn Michaels into the NWO.
Booker T.
Oh my God! It was just a mess.
The only legacy of this version is it's Shawn Michaels' return. Like, that's the only thing. It gets Shawn Michaels back into a role on television. So as they're meeting with him, we don't have time to bring all these guys out to the podium. We got a lot of picks to make, so we're going to do some in quick succession, and we're just going to do them from the war room. So Flair, he's got one up on Vince. He says, I'm drafting Kane. We go from Chris Benoit, and the retort is Kane. I was like, I am sensing the difference here of these two rosters.
Is that okay?
At this point, I'm like, I think I'm going to become a Monday Night Football fan.
See,
that's how much these 3 rounds are pushing me.
I guess I'm still very much thinking like in kayfabe, in WWE universe speak, where like, I mean, a Kane,
would Kane be above your Intercontinental Champion at this point? Like any of your champions, for instance?
Who is the IC champ?
Rob Van Dam. Like, again,
yes.
In kayfabe.
The answer
like, where
is
is Kane? Kane is he this?
Kane is big. Kane is a big guy, and therefore, like he's a demon. Okay, and I think a demon outranks an IC champion.
Okay. Trish Stratus and Ivory, showcase of the women's division. I enjoyed this because we got the rundown of sponsors, including Recording Artist Custom.
I actually briefly looked up Custom. I'm like, that sounds familiar. And yes,
the late Mister. Custom. Hey, Mister.
I didn't know he died.
Yeah, this is a big song in 2002.
Yes, it was.
Trish Stratus.
Yeah, sponsored somehow here. Sponsoring Raw. So, all right.
Stratus hit the dreaded phantom kick as Ivory grabbed her shoulder. The crowd responded by chanting for puppies. Welcome to 2002. There's a reverse crossbody that is missed by Trish, and then she goes to the stratosphere off the buckle and a stratisfaction for the win in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Jim Ross asks the question on everyone's mind, I wonder if any females will be drafted tonight.
Big setup for, I guess, the end of the evening. Yeah.
Yeah, the big climactic pick at the end. Spoiler, none of these two would be drafted on the show. But I don't even feel I require any rundown of these matches. Like, they're so nothing here.
Yeah, especially really on this show. I mean, like we could talk a bit about Trish. I mean, certainly at this point, she was really exceeding a lot of expectations, right? I don't know if this was like, she already had that match at WrestleMania, I suppose, and was probably like at this point still considered, hey, like a pretty decent wrestler, at least, according to the standard of the time. But I definitely still felt there was a newness here in her movement. Whereas, man, Ivory, all the talk is really surrounding Trish and Lita, but Ivory was the veteran here, and you could definitely see it just even in this short little 2-minute match. Her ability and her control, I thought were really strong. So maybe doesn't get talked about that much, but I thought she was very good.
Yes. And for those that are like criticizing like the lack of time that the matches got, or the fact there's like one female that gets picked on the whole television broadcast, like they did dedicate resources and real estate on the show to the women's representation.
It's the one moment you've desperately been waiting for. Your wildest dreams come true. The Divas are back and hotter than ever. Divas 2002 swimsuit issue coming April 2nd to newsstands everywhere.
You know what? I guess this was
this a first day purchase for you?
Oh, I mean, I have it hanging on my wall still. Yes,
to newsstands everywhere. And Trish got the cover.
She did. Yeah, she was the big poster girl.
All right. Well, we continue on, and McMahon comes back out. Continued chance of "you are an asshole," and he picks Hulk Hogan. The highlight of this was Vince playing the air guitar.
Yes, mm-hmm.
Vince Oshi Tanahashi, and does Hulk Hogan's poses, and wouldn't you know it, Hulk Hogan's fucking pissed backstage. Everyone's angry. That's the tone of this show. No one wants to work for their bosses on this show. So you're going to get a lot of unsatisfied workers / independent contractors.
Well, it wouldn't be much of a show if everybody was happy.
Yes. Kurt was happy, just not with his positioning. So we have one satisfied employee. So Ric Flair decides, hey, we've got other titles in this show. I'm going to pick Rob Van Dam. So he gets the Intercontinental Champion. Vince McMahon, shit. He's got a belt. Why didn't I think of that? So Kurt comes up with an unbelievable idea. What if you make a match tonight where I can face Van Dam and I could win the title? And I saw Vince's response, that's brilliant. Brilliant. And he admits, maybe you should have been my first pick. As this flamingo peacock oversees this discussion. Look at the set dressing. What do you give this on a scale of 1 to 10 here? This is high up.
1 to 10. 10. Yeah, it was great. A lot of Vincent Angle on the show, and
tons of Vincent Angle on the show.
I mean, it's a way to showcase the Mr. McMahon character, of course. And I thought, they showed pretty good chemistry together.
Hogan meets up with The Rock. They have the most unrealistic conversation among friends you could ever. Like AI would look at this and be like, ugh, cut. He says, "Heard what you said out there, Rock. That the people made The Rock. Well, the people also made Hulk Hogan. Yeah, brother. The people made us." He proposes teaming up tonight against the NWO for their last night together on Raw. The end of an era. And let's give the people something to remember. They each do the other's catchphrase, and they accept. One final run on Raw.
That's right.
Yeah. Brother. Did the people make Wai Ting?
No, it was my parents' genitalia.
Okay.
They made me. Did these two have much more of this sort of interaction after this?
I don't know how many more episodes, if any, Rock is on after this. Like, he might have been on an episode or two, but he's gone really quickly after this. He doesn't make it to the next pay-per-view. And then again, he's not back until Austin leaves. So I think this is the end of our Rock Hogan interaction until the next year when Rock comes back as the heel and works with Hogan at that Montreal pay-per-view. Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, just, coming off of like the incredible buzz off of WrestleMania 18, maybe in my mind, these two would have a little bit more interactions with each other. But I mean, with Rock working a limited schedule, this would kind of come down to this.
My question to you is, if I, for whatever reason, just went down a dark path and I decided one day to strike you with a hammer, and then as you are being wheeled off into an ambulance outside your home, I run you over with a semi, how many weeks until you could come and be my friend again? Would you make it 4 weeks, or do you think we'd have to extend it to like 6 weeks?
I mean, if we were pro wrestlers, I think that something like that would be expected over the lifetime of a mutual respect relationship.
What would I have to say to you to get your forgiveness? Like, would I require an explanation? Like, could I just say, like, heat of the moment?
You don't have to say anything. All you would have to do is help me sell out a stadium and provide me with a huge payday.
Okay, well, I do know of a local stadium that we could book.
Great. All right.
Save our friendship. McMahon's next pick are Billy and Chuck. The gay guys. We gotta get the gay demographic. And there's a great shot in the some of these are more fun because they go to the locker room and these guys have to sell it like, they've won they picked the lottery ticket, but then you watch the people in the background and you're just imagining what that character is thinking, such as Edge, who is like sitting there just waiting for his turn while I guess Rico was part of this package. So these two, they had the NWO clause in their contract, I guess. And these two were also tag champions. So it's just the men's and women's singles champions that can go back and forth. These titles are brand specific.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
The tag division was exclusive, at least at this point in time, to SmackDown. What do you think Raven was thinking in his dreadlocks?
He's thinking, I got another year before I'm going to go to TNA and work with Jeff Jarrett. That's what he's thinking at this point. Like, his career is going nowhere fast in 2002. The Rock and Hulk Hogan against Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and X-Pac on like 10 minutes notice. It's approved by who we don't know. We have a clip of Kevin Nash on SmackDown powerbombing The Rock through a table, then Hogan running out, hitting a leg drop, and X-Pac showing up as the new member of the NWO, busting open Hogan with a chair shot. So this sounded like quite the episode of SmackDown that we missed.
They had to do a lot of work, I guess, in the lead up to this. Mm-hmm.
So Hogan locks up X-Pac's role, fly all over the place for these guys. That is X-Pac's role, okay? All in Nash, they're just going to take this one in. There's chance of Hogan. Nash cuts off Hogan, and they get the heat. Then a huge sequence. Rock is in, Kip up, fires up on X-Pac, tags Hogan for the leg drop as Rock applies the sharpshooter. I mean, these guys were gearing up for like the Real World Tag League at the end of the year. X-Pac saves Nash, and then Kane's pyro goes off. Kane comes out, and he's got X-Pac's nunchucks that he's brought out and attacks the NWO for the DQ. They went a marathon 5 minutes and 6 seconds, the longest match on the show so far. Chair shots by X-Pac. Then Kane kicks the chair into X-Pac's face, choke slams Scott Hall, meaning he took a bump in this match, and Hogan gets stunned when Lillian Garcia reads that the NWO has won by DQ. He's like, what? How could they win? Total nothing match, but hey, we got popped a quarter out of some stars here.
I was enjoying it, just as some sort of snapshot of this. In terms of star power, this was a very deep roster, okay, and like in terms of legends, they concentrated a lot of it in the body of this 3-on-2 handicap match here. It was something you appreciate now, certainly more, now that Hogan and Hall aren't around. The crowd was really into the 80s Hogan shtick, and I thought, at least like for this show, was a pretty cool match to book on a few minutes' notice. And I think the last time Hogan would interact with Hall and Nash on this run.
Yeah, you're right, because Hogan is left on SmackDown for... well, until he wins the title the next month from Hunter. But by that point, Hall is almost done. Yeah, like this is kind of the end. Nash gets hurt in July. This is 2002, like the very clear-cut winner of like that NWO signings. Like Hogan has a really good run in this 2002 period with WWF, including like the work with Angle. He has a really great match with Jericho on TV and does the Brock match in SmackDown that really puts over Brock as well. Like Hogan has like a really good comeback here for the time it lasts. Flair and Anderson get confronted by Vince, and Vince accuses him of stealing The Undertaker and the NWO from him. Flair explains what this concept is. I thought Linda was going to come in here and we were just going to replay her speech. I was ready for Glock to make an appearance here.
Was he born yet at this point?
I meant the literal Glock from Arn, but
I thought you meant his son.
Glock Anderson. Arn should have been the one going toe-to-toe here as like the muscle for Rick. So then we just get like, yeah, I know you are, but what am I? With just picks back and forth. So Flair picks Booker T. Vince picks Edge. Advantage Vince. Flair picks Big Show. McMahon takes...
the way he... I'd love to know what the game plan was, because like the way Flair decided on the Big Show was that Vince said Booker T happened to have a huge victory. Oh, sorry, Edge happened to have a huge victory over Booker T. And hearing the word huge made Flair say, speaking of huge, I'd pick the Big Show. So what if he didn't say huge? I guess did Flair intend on picking Big Show, or was it,
Edge just got a minuscule victory over Booker T. You say minuscule? I picked the Cruiserweight champion. Who would go into draft lottery, folks. So Booker T and Edge are the picks. Flair picks Big Show. McMahon takes Rikishi, which at best is a push.
He's also big.
So Vince is picking the guy that he was violated with.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Flair says, that's great. So maybe he could sit his big ass on your face again. Fuck this show. That's what I was thinking.
I thought these segments were a lot of fun. I mean, seeing these two like basically play these sort of like cartoonish old men on opposing sides, I was having fun watching it.
Well, I was screaming for
you wanted sports-like presentation with both of these two.
No, I just wanted a whole new company to launch at this point. That's what I was. That's what I was cheering for. I was rooting for the UFC to come in. Billy takes on Jeff Hardy. Future AEW talents here with Chuck and Rico in one corner, Matt Hardy and Lita in the other. Jeff would hit a, quote, hurricane DDT variation on the tornado DDT at the time. And Chuck interferes. A swanton is missed to Billy, so Rico grabs the belt and gets hit by Lita with a Rana off the apron, and a bridging O'Connor roll by Jeff pins Billy in, brace for it, 1 minute and 50 seconds.
Oh, wow. These were all speed matches. I think they were just
that's it. That's
concept.
it. I think that would have been a better explanation for some of these.
Yeah, Lita did this the Hurricane Rana dive off the apron onto Rico. Didn't look that great, but it was more than enough, to still pop the crowd. This was just, I'm assuming, to set up a tag title match, really continuing the trend
because oh yeah, you're right because the Hardys would stay together on this draft, but somewhere in the ensuing months they get split up.
Right.
Because we get the Matt heel turn on SmackDown.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, these matches on the show, they're really just there to go into the big spots, the interferences, and then the finish. So really irrelevant.
So you know what, Way? House show attendance is going down, and we need an ad campaign, okay? We need something that's going to elicit our fan base, and that's what we got here.
I was there.
I was there.
When Rock became champion.
When Triple H returned.
Vince brought back the NWO.
We were there. We were there.
I was there when Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
I was there.
When Mick Foley
soared off the top of the steel cage. I was there.
When Giants collided.
When dreams became reality. I was there.
We were there.
When over 68,000 fans
tore the roof of the sky.
I was there.
I was there.
I was there live.
I was there live. The WWF Live. The moments are waiting.
Yes. Now, the funny part is this did not make it to air, but they actually did a follow-up ad to this at the end of the year. And I did get a chance to review some of the copy that included, I was there when Big Show and Rikishi ran through their house show match. I was there when Vince's head got stuffed up Rikishi's ass. I was there when Hunter fucked a corpse. I was there.
That would be something I would be telling people 20-something years afterwards. Yeah.
This was not quite the WWF Desire campaign, I would say. This was one that I don't know if this one really stands in infamy among the high points of WWF campaigns.
Maybe they should bring it back. Maybe that would encourage house shows to return at some point. But maybe they don't really need it.
I wasn't there. All the great house show moments of 2025. I wasn't there because I was priced out of. I was in a C-town. I was there. I was in efficiency. Ric Flair picks Bubba Ray Dudley, allowing Vince to pick Devon Dudley, and the two have to react. First, of course, they're pissed. Of course. They have a reason to be. And then they just shake hands and hug, and they whisper it into each other's ears. I'll see you in November.
That's when they got back together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was like a long time by the standards of some of these other non-brand specific switches.
So the Dudley's breakup was really like the one big repercussion of this particular draft. And I mean, I would think that something like this was almost done at least partially to show the audiences one of the effects of these drafts. I mean, this was the first time that it had happened.
They almost had to do one of these.
Yeah. Edge and Christian already broke into their singles runs the year prior. Now they're going to try with the Dudleys. And this would be the mistake. So,
but if you watch Raw, like granted, the Raw roster is really poor coming out of this draft. They do put Bubba into like they do give him a semi-serious push. I mean, Devon is Reverend Devon. Like this thing it's a disaster. And quite frankly, neither of them is strong enough for a singles run in 2002.
They tried to put Bubba into the hardcore division, which makes a lot of sense, but just like as a babyface singles guy, I don't think it really clicked. At least not in the way that I think the Dudleys were already established. I mean, really, of the three TLC teams, I think it was the Dudleys that probably had the most difficulty in their singles runs. At least until Bully Ray, of course.
Yeah, they also do split up. Don't they split up Bradshaw and Farouk in this draft?
As part of the extra draft?
Yeah, because Bradshaw goes to Raw and Farouk goes to SmackDown.
Because Bradshaw was in the hardcore division as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should explain this now. So the on-screen draft in storyline, it's the GMs themselves are making the picks. Yeah. The website is designed to be a draft lottery. Right. So it's just at random. But the real story to this is that they didn't tell any of the talent what brand they were going to. So Lance Storm has spoken about this many times. They have SmackDown to tape the next day. So they leave Penn State and they've got to go to SmackDown the next day. And remember, this is 2002. We don't have smartphones. They literally had to check in on the website to find out what tour we're going to be on. Like, this is going to change their personal lives because of their new schedule, like who their traveling partners are going to be, if they're going to be on the road with their partners, if they're going to be on the Saturday to Tuesday loop or the Friday to Monday loop. So literally, like, Lance had to like call up a friend or something to load up his computer to tell him what show he had been drafted to. And that's what the talent had to all do that were not drafted on the show proper.
And has he ever spoken about his placement? I guess when you're talking about draft lottery, it's not necessarily representative of where somebody's picked.
Yeah, but, like, dude, you have Steven Richards goes in front of Chris Jericho in this draft lottery. But I think the idea was like, it's like picking a name out of a hat for the draft lottery. But I mean, that's not like in actuality, like they are kind of like, if you're not on the main show, you're probably not the biggest of priorities, save for maybe a Jericho who had the out of being in the main event.
Right.
William Regal and Rikishi for the European title doesn't even get started because Brock Lesnar runs in and attacks Rikishi with a very impressive looking F5. This is a week after he had debuted off of WrestleMania. Heyman watches on, and so the match never begins. But yeah, this is the start of, this is the project of 2002, and it's really hard to envision that this is March and by August he's champion. Like, it is really something of how they just go all the way with this guy.
Yeah, and certainly you can say in hindsight the right call, but it required somebody with the look and the explosiveness of a Brock Lesnar to be able to pull that off at such a young age, and I think from the get-go he already had that. You know, to see him, I mean, this was a very effective use of Rikishi, who, you know, I think by this point was pretty much written off as like a mid-carder, and for Brock to basically be able to lift effortlessly Rikishi into an F5, who also gave him his very famous flipping clothesline sell. It made Brock Lesnar look really tremendous here.
Yes, I do look forward to maybe Rikishi sharing his thoughts on this for aggregation in 2025.
We'll finally talk about this one. Yeah.
But listen, I think like the handling of Brock was number one. Like, managers were not much of a thing in terms of like someone that was going to cut the promo for the performer. Like, they had pretty much gotten away from that. They broke the mold here, or at least reintroduced the function for a Heyman that, like, where does this Brock go if he is just brought in on his own? Like, I think he flounders. Like, he is not, like, work wise, he was exceptionally green when was called up, but they worked around it. They kept his match shorter. And by the end of 2002, he has made gigantic strides. Like, this guy's a babyface by the end of this year. It tells you, like, when you are dead set on making a guy, like, they went full force behind Brock, and you could have come up with all these reasons that he wasn't ready, but they said, man, we need stars, and they committed to it, and they made one in Brock by the end of this summer.
They were giving him Goldberg chants at the beginning. You remember?
Yeah, that's right. And those, slowly but surely, those disappeared till Ryback. And then we go. Who's on WWF New York duty for the night? It is our women's champion, Jazz.
We are live, ladies and gentlemen, Penn State University, but you're looking live in the heart of Times Square, home of WWF New York, and we understand inside is the WWF Women's Champion, Jazz. And Jazz, I'd like to get your thoughts on how you think the draft is shaping up so far.
Well, JR, I'm just waiting to see where some of the WWF divas end up. Because there's nothing I would like better than getting in the ring with one of them like Trish or Lita and messing up their pretty little face. And if the people want to call me a bitch, fine. mine. What they have to learn is that the WWF Women's Champion, I'll be the only bitch appearing on both shows.
Well, thank you very much for your directness.
Take that, huh?
That directness. Bitch.
Oh, great.
Yeah, very, very underrated talent of the era. Jazz to me was my favorite of the women of this era, because I thought she gets like the least praise for like the evolution of this women's division at the time period, but it was also a very difficult era to stand out on those fronts. And unfortunately, like she has that match at Mania, and then she kind of just, she's there, but is not really much of, like, we've kind of ended like her big tenure at the company. So then we go to Vince coming out, more asshole chants, and he picks Brock Lesnar. And at this point, you're thinking, my God, this SmackDown roster is looking nuts. When Flair comes out and tells him, you're not on the clock, it's my pick.
Just like a schoolyard, like
how did this mistake occur? So Vince says, okay, well, you can have 2 picks. Flair's like, no, fuck that. I'm choosing Lesnar. And the funny part about this being that Brock would end up costing Ric Flair his match with Vince McMahon for control of the entire company.
And, funny how that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Vince and Brock, they would be entwined.
That they would be. Mm-hmm.
So Flair picks Brock Lesnar, and Vince says, I'm going to pick someone with just as much potential. Mark Henry. Flair says, oh yeah? William Regal. Vince says, fuck. I want someone with YouTube charisma. I want Maven. And then with the final pick of the night, Flair says, well, it's 2002. It's time for us to pick a woman. And beating Tokyo Sports by 23 years, he picks Lita. The only woman chosen on the first 20 picks. And look at Lita being like, oh my God, I got chosen. Look at Tajiri, a man that clearly just aghast at this equality. And there you have it, folks. I mean, this to me in today, in this landscape, this would have been the biggest controversy coming out of this draft if the women got a 2-minute match with Trish and Ivory, and then Lita was the one and only pick at the end of it. And Jim Ross surmising, I wonder if a woman would get picked. I wonder if a woman would be among the top 20.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted to at least use this to make some sort of statement, as a way to spotlight Lita. You can argue maybe it was a worthwhile attempt.
So that's the end of the picks, and then they're sending you to WWE.com. Do you have any memory, Wade? Did you go to WWE.com that night?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. Maybe I just relied on Lance Storm maybe to go post it on his website. He could alert us all where everyone went. Vince, I forgot about this. Vince laughs that Flair used his last pick on, quote, a woman, and calls Flair a lascivious pig that is going to turn Raw into a cesspool, which is not too far off from where they would get in the fall. And again, says that Austin is coming to SmackDown. And he warns Ric Flair about your talent showing up on SmackDown this week, which they are eligible to do because the draft results don't go into effect until next Monday. And Flair continues to encourage the chant and calls Vince an asshole.
Yeah.
And that's our televised portion of the draft.
Yeah, that's them for the day, Flair and Vince.
But we have titles at stake. Rob Van Dam, Kurt Angle for control of the Intercontinental Championship. They promote Van Dam's theme song, which will be available tomorrow when Forcible Entry comes out on compact disc.
Great album.
Forcible Entry. So they had a nice match here, as nice of a match that could last 2 minutes and 54 seconds with a DQ finish. There's just suplex galore here. Angle gets caught with a rolling thunder. There's a spin kick by Van Dam. At some point here, Kurt gets his mouth busted open. And Angle uses Tim White as a shield, takes a flying kick. The ankle lock is applied as Tim White calls for the bell because of the flying kick. And the DQ is the end of the match, Edge runs out, attacking Kurt, and the spear misses as Angle lands a German, and then an Angle slam is countered. He spears Angle, and we get a big pull apart. And again, somewhere in all of this, Kurt got busted open, whether it be Van Dam or from Edge. But this is, this is the post-Mania program for these two. Much stronger than their Mania programs going into Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like this was a much more WrestleMania worthy, matchup, first of all, and also resulting stipulation. A hair versus hair match for a WrestleMania.
With the guy with the shampoo contract in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's going to ruin that commercial. Stephanie gets interviewed by Michael Cole and reiterates that you'll be out of the WWF if Hunter pins you. She's not going anywhere. She will be on both shows because she will be the undisputed champion.
Yeah.
Very possible. So Triple H, Jericho, Stephanie for the undisputed title. Gigantic pop for Hunter as he comes out. He's still sporting the two separate belts at this point before they would combine into one. We got the two legs represented here. Hunter and Jericho start as Stephanie stands to the side, and a clothesline sends Hunter out, and Stephanie lays down for Jericho, but Hunter yanks him off and pretty much works it as a handicap match until Jericho and Stephanie would start arguing. But we did a bunch of comedy spots. Jericho gets catapulted into Stephanie in the corner, and she does like the Flair Sting spot where she lands on his crotch. Hunter kicks her to the floor, and Jericho then kicks at the quad and works over the injured quad of Triple H. Great psychology here. Then Jericho gets knocked into Stephanie. She slaps Jericho, and Jericho pie faces her. And as the two argue, Jericho misses a lion salt, and Stephanie capitalizes, trying to pin him. And like the crowd is getting into this, but when Hunter is finally alone with Stephanie, they go wild at the idea of male on female violence. And he calls for the pedigree, but is stopped with a Jericho missile dropkick. Jericho gets a belt, as well as a chair, and there's a double belt shot with Hunter as Earl removes the chair and misses all of this. Stephanie goes after both of them for pins, each one kicking out, and the walls are placed onto Hunter, but Stephanie jumps onto Jericho's back. There's a pedigree to Jericho, and Stephanie makes the save before falling to a spine buster by Triple H, winning in 8 minutes and 9 seconds. Thus, the last time we would ever see Stephanie McMahon.
Ever. Yeah, in her wrestling career.
Yes.
I mean,
until she's just named GM a few months later of SmackDown.
I suppose you can argue that this was the end of the sort of like early Stephanie McMahon billionaire princess character that debuted with the whole, wedding with Tazz and all that.
Because when she comes back, she's the babyface GM of SmackDown.
Yeah. And I thought she was actually great, in this particular storyline. I could definitely say I think she overstayed her welcome in the feud. I mean, maybe the results and the ratings tell differently, but I was always it didn't really, rub me the right way that they made this feud in WrestleMania more about Triple H versus Stephanie than Triple H versus Chris Jericho. I think it really hurt Jericho. But as a performer, Stephanie is incredibly charismatic and, gained a whole lot of attention and reaction in this particular match for her involvement, as ridiculous as the whole thing is.
Yeah, I mean, the McMahons never demonstrated that ability. Like when you built up to one of their matches on like a pay-per-view, it always felt like a step too far that audiences, just not in gigantic numbers, were willing to pay for it. But as television draws, like when Shane did some of those big matches on Raw, or this instance, like some of them did really well. And this would be an example of them. And, you have to credit that. Like Stephanie was she started out as an extremely amateur performer that kind of grew into the role and became like very, very good in the role, especially, later in her career as well. But, she kind of does make this, and they obviously felt like it's a totally different style of match than just Hunter and Jericho having a rematch from WrestleMania. Like all the focus is on Stephanie here, and it did work when this is, your peak segment of the show. And she did a really good job of just the whole security taking her out. She's clinging on to the post like she's Dixie Carter with Hogan, and they sing goodbye, of course. And Jim Ross, just adding the salt to the wound, says her marriage is over and her career is over.
Yeah. Was the plan always, to your knowledge, just for her to be done with this particular heel character at this point?
I think I don't think anyone looked at this as like this would be. It would just be. It was a pot. Like all the McMahons, they would have their periods where they would disappear, but they would always come back. And I think everyone assumed like once the role is designed, she would be back in some form or fashion. I don't think anyone looked at this as any kind of permanent write-off, but it would always go in these spurts of where, Vince would disappear for a period and then come back, and same with Stephanie.
And at what point are we with her involvement in creative? Like
she's already got a heavy role in creative at this point. So, that should be like the focus for her at this time anyway. But, she does do the dual role coming up in the summer when she becomes the GM on SmackDown with, Bischoff and Stephanie. And that's kind of like the second launch of the brand extension. It's kind of under that where they try to restart it again after McMahon and Flair are put aside. Mm-hmm. So there you go. That was the draft. And just to go through, so the draft lottery after the show, going to SmackDown are Billy Kidman, Tajiri, Chris Jericho, Ivory, Albert, the Hurricane, Al Snow, Lance Storm, who had to wait till the 35th pick to find out where he was going, DDP, Tori Wilson, Scotty 2 Hotty, Stacy Keibler, Christian, Test, Farouk, Tazz, Hardcore Holly, Val Venus, and the last pick overall at 57th, Perry Saturn. You're welcome. And then to Raw, after Lita was Bradshaw, Steven Richards, Matt Hardy, Raven, Jeff Hardy, Mr. Perfect, the perfect pick, 32nd overall, Spike, D'Lo, Sean Stasiak, Terry, Jacqueline, Goldust, Trish Stratus, Just Incredible, Big Boss Man, Tommy Dreamer, Crash Holly, and Mighty Molly. This is a very weighted roster, one over the other, I would say. That was my initial impression here.
And you wouldn't have to worry about that too much, John, because they would probably just
little did I know that we would get. So yeah, Austin and Eddie bump up Raw. Benoit just decides, it doesn't work for me. I'm just going to go to Raw. Just pulls the Eric Lindros, and that is a draft of 2002.
Yeah, I have to say, all in all, I think to appreciate the show, you should not go in expecting professional wrestling. This is largely a show starring Vince McMahon and Ric Flair doing their GM thing. Just having, I think, a lot of spiteful interactions with each other, picking their picks that their opponents were going to pick before them. And the roster really takes a backseat in the episode. You had like a decent Rock promo. Wrestling wise, maybe some comedic enjoyment out of the main event if you're into this type of like Three Stooges type of professional wrestling. But beyond that, there's not much redeeming value wrestling wise. So I can't necessarily say this is a show that ages very well.
It's one of the WWF's kind of like big event type of shows where this is far from like presenting wrestling. It's about it's the draft. That's the focus. That's what it's promoted around. And it's more so just setting the stakes for what is to come. And, I think a lot of people were at least optimistic to see how they would do with this go around. And the real benefit to this brand extension comes, in that 2016 one when, by doing that, they were able to get a deal for Fox for SmackDown. Like they were able to create these two shows and made it that much more valuable by having Raw and SmackDown kind of as their own entities at that time. So at this point, we're going to welcome in our Espresso executive producer. It is the returning Blake Lovell to talk about the draft. And now joining us to talk about the 2002 draft, it is Blake Lovell, our Espresso executive producer, taking us back some 23 years to the Invasion Redux. How are you, Blake?
Doing well, guys. I know we're recording this after another late nights of an extended Dynamite, so I appreciate you guys as always. But yeah, I thought this would be a fun choice, and one of the reasons why is something you guys both know something about. I was like, I could have went with another 3-hour pay-per-view like I did with WrestleMania 17 or Money in the Bank, but I also now have a 3-year-old and 1-year-old, and I'm like, a nice little tidy episode of Raw doesn't sound too bad. So,
yeah, you would think after all these years, Wai would be not the one to he likes to just wait till the morning of. He has got the most fresh takes on all of these reviews, so I'm sure he appreciates the 90-minute runtime that this had.
Yeah.
It is very appreciated. Yeah, I mean, I actually fit most of this last night after recording the show, and
this guy's out of his goddamn mind.
So, but I do appreciate that consideration. It was a very tidy 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So Blake, it is 2002, and the idea of a brand split had been bandied about throughout the early portion of 2002. The Invasion was pretty admittedly an underwhelming execution by the company the previous year. Where is your fandom at this point? And when you saw the idea of separating rosters between both shows, was it an immediate, this sounds cool, or trepidation based on what we had just gone through the previous year?
Yeah, like at the time, like I'm thinking this is cool because, you know, growing up as a big sports fan, like, you know, just, hey, drafts, like all that good stuff. And like even now, like doing like sports work, and I'm just like, okay, covering drafts and all that and seeing how they operate. I'm like, oh, this sounds fun. Like you have different people, you know, on different brands, and you've got different storylines, and not everyone's intertwining all the time and all that. So at the time I was like, hey, I'm all for seeing how this works. But also I think I did, not to the extent I do now, like had the perspective of, man, logistically, this could be a nightmare, like trying to figure out exactly how they're going to execute this. And I think that wound up being something like, looking back at it now, I'm like, there were so many moving parts, whether it's trying to figure out, okay, you know, what are you doing with your champions? What are you doing with this guy or that guy? And then it's like, oh, by the way, you have separate booking teams. And, oh, yeah, these guys don't know, all of them, if they're going to be drafted here or there. And it's just like, it seemed like even at the time, I could still wrap my head around the logistical nightmare that it could be if they did not execute it effectively, I guess.
Now, what if I told you, why don't you just be patient, Blake? Because obviously this is going to lead to some battle for control of the brands. And we're going to do this on 90 minutes notice on an episode of Raw in June. And by the end of the spring, Vince will control both of these brands. And we won't even milk a pay-per-view out of it. I'm sure you would have been saying, let's go. Let's bring this on. I'm ready for the brand extension.
Not the most positive outlook, probably, for sure. So,
was there a less combative description than brand extension? I mean,
Right.
This feels like this is right out of the Mark Shapiro lexicon of these two companies battling to the death. It is not a split. It's not a divorce. It's a brand extension.
Yeah, the roster was a little frothy, I think, at the time, if you really think about it. And yeah, it was like, hey, we're just going to extend this over here. We don't want it to feel like, you know, there's an actual back and forth war here because, you know, again, we would get to that and had that beforehand and everything. But yeah, like you said, it's just like, okay, we're extending things here, and you're going to see the same guys you've been seeing on this one. They're just going to be on the separate brand, and we'll contain them to that unless they're the champion. And, you know, just everything. And of course, eventually it went off the rails. It went off the rails kind of after this. It didn't take long, but
it's time for some IP diversification.
There you go. Yeah.
It feels very much like a Vince thing where, you know, like you don't want to say WrestleMania 31, 32, 35 because that sounds too old. In the same way, you don't want to make something sound like it's being split in half and less than. You want it to make it sound like this is a growth of each brand. So therefore we are extending. We're not splitting anything. We're making this better than it was before. The concept of a brand split, I mean, this is a thing that this company has really struggled with since the death of WCW, right? They realized that, hey, like this sort of, you know, some semblance of competition is really healthy, okay? And so we have to kind of fabricate it ourselves. And all this time, we keep going back and forth between like trying these brand splits, essentially ending them, you know, almost like unofficially by just like bleeding these rosters together, which we're currently experiencing pretty much right now. and then just like trying again, several years later when we've kind of forgotten and we feel idealistic again about maybe the idea of it. What benefits would you say a brand split, has provided this company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the one that most people always turn to, and that's just you're going to see people that otherwise, if they're all stacked on the same show, you're not going to have as many of those opportunities. I'm sure there are plenty of examples that beyond this initial first draft, which kind of tried to set the tone for everything, there are people that maybe don't have the careers they had unless you kind of had more of that split the way where, okay, they're getting more of a profile on SmackDown. Of course, everyone remembers the SmackDown 6 and all of that. Like you're seeing guys just completely become, potential-wise what you could see them become. It just, I don't know if they ever would have gotten there if they'd have been stuck behind, the same rotating storylines on every single show of the 2 shows each week. Like you would have had a lot more of a difficult path to get there. So I think to me, that was kind of one of those things where, hey, at least you're getting the chance to basically kind of sink or swim with some of these people. We're going to put them out there and not everyone's going to hit, but the ones that do, they go on to become some of these people who became, kind of the bigger stars. And I thought, John brought up the point the other day, like Cena at the time, it's easy for me to forget, like he was like, initially he makes the impact, but then he's kind of just like, I don't know, like, is he going to make it? And,
he's
but
the
I think
velocity
that's
guy. Like he's
like,
really struggling by the end of the summer. Like he comes in with the immediate impact, and after a month, like he's just slotted.
Yeah, and so I think it's like where if he doesn't get that chance to maybe eventually be like a brand specific type guy or whatever, like he maybe just gets lost to the point to where who knows what happens. And so, again, that's in hindsight of everything, but it's a fascinating thing to think about.
So your opinion might have changed a week later because on the first brand-specific edition of Raw, you do get the return of Austin. They also bring back Eddie Guerrero. But after this draft on March 25th, and you are assessing these 2 rosters, are you coming out of this, Blake, saying, wow, look at these 2 diverse rosters? Or are you stating, well, that sorts out Thursday nights for me, and I'm free to do whatever I want on Monday nights?
See, and I think that's the thing I go back to is I'm like, if you compared it and you were like, hey, what was going to be the biggest challenge? Well, I mean, if there are certain people I don't like and they're all jumbled on one particular roster, like, well, I don't really have to watch that every single week, or I can kind of check in when I need to and just see, hey, that sounds exciting. I'll go watch it, or otherwise, maybe I'll just stick to SmackDown because I like what they have going on with this guy and that guy. And so I know that probably, like, going back to the brand extension type question, it's like, hey, we're not going to tell you we're having a hard split here because that gives you the opportunity to go out and just completely ignore one of the shows. If you're not a fan of the NWO, if you're not a fan of, bad skits on Raw and, elsewhere, let's go watch, Kurt Angle on SmackDown. Let's go watch this or that. And so, yeah, like, I think that was probably, each week it's fun because you are trying to, I'm sure as a fan at the time, I'm probably building it in my head of, oh man, this is WWF versus WCW. Like, all right, I got to pick one and I'm going to ride SmackDown or Raw or whatever. But it really wasn't that way. It was just kind of like, hey, I can see the understandable point of, like, at times you're going to look up and be like, this thing feels a little diluted because everything every week's not going to hit, especially, like I said, like you had 2, I mean, you can remind me of this, John, but like, was it Heyman and Gewurz at the time? Were they the two?
They were the leads on the opposite shows, but it feels very much like it's not as though they weren't working on both shows, but they were the lead writers. Yeah. It was much more of a collaborative than it's kind of been described, but yeah, they were the lead writers ultimately under Vince on both shows.
Yeah, and you could just tell, like, it felt like again, Vince, everything goes through Vince, but it just felt like a different approach. And of course, Heyman can tell all the stories about how they're trying to prove they're better than Raw and all this. And so, yeah, that was another kind of interesting aspect to it.
Felt like at least maybe part of the attempt to maybe soften that sort of risk of losing your audience was to have your traveling champion, your traveling world champion, traveling, women's world champion, where that can go back and forth between the brands, allowing your essentially top guy in the entire company to be able to appear on either show. What did you think about that decision, at least to start here?
I kind of liked it just because I felt like you could, because I guess my thinking was at the time, and I remember this, I'm like, if the title's not involved like on one of the shows, if you're basically telling me that, okay, this champion is here and you're not going with the concept yet of having 2 world titles or whatever, well, immediately I'm going to be like, well, okay, this is going to feel lesser than. This stretch of time until there's a title change or whatever, and maybe it flips to the other brand, however they execute that, it's going to feel lesser than. Not that you couldn't work stories without the title, but, I mean, this is 2002, right? It's like, hey, the title is still the title. And, you know, you want to feel like everyone's kind of chasing that. And so you're obviously limiting yourselves when it comes to, you know, what happens if you just contain it here or there, which I know they did with like the secondary titles and all that. Of course, whoever it was, Van Dam was drafted and Billy and Chuck were drafted as the tag champ, like all those kind of things. But I like the idea of just seeing the champion bounce back and forth. And like, of course, eventually it would lead to just some of the not strangest main events, but like at the time you're thinking like, okay, you're going to get Triple H and Hogan at Backlash. You know, I was at Judgment Day the following month where it's like, I'm watching The Undertaker and Hogan, and what a, you know, timely reference here for you guys who just did Survivor Series 91. I'm like, I'm watching these two 11 years later, and let me tell you, the vibe was a little bit different in the crowd at the time. It's just like, yeah, like you're getting just all these different combinations of having a champion who can bounce back and forth. So I liked it at the time. I thought it was better than the alternative.
It's crazy to think about that jump from those two in the 11 years. The fact that it's only been 11 years. I mean, you could think back 11 years from now in 2014. I don't know if we've doesn't feel like that long ago, but for Hogan and Taker, those 11 years feel like a
long 11 years for Terry.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this is that you look at this on paper, and you can very much it's as much of the brand split as it is the top star split of Austin and Rock. And if you are rewinding, say, a year prior, like how much different this is. Like Austin is going to be gone essentially by June, and it's hardly this stellar send-off in these ensuing months where you can see this guy's burnout level is increasing. And Rock is like, he's not on this April pay-per-view. He's pretty much done as a full-timer by the time this draft is taking place. Like, he's never back as, you know, he comes back in the summer, has to run through SummerSlam, but he's pretty much out. This is, like, we're entering the post-Austin Rock era, and, like, the hidden aspect to that is that it does open up a lot of spots. Like, if you have a healthy, regular and rotation Rock in Austin, you probably don't get the rise of Brock. You probably are less intrigued to call up Cena and Randy Orton. Like, 2002 is a very bizarre year, but I think this is a much different launch pad if you have a Austin Rock full-timers on each show to kind of carry those two brands.
Yeah, and like I even think about, again, fast forwarding like to Judgment Day, because like, you know, this draft obviously affects those kind of matches, but like on that show, I think it was Eddie and RVD, you had Edge and Angle, that was the hair versus hair. Mm-hmm. There was another one I'm forgetting. There was one more match I'm trying to remember. But I mean, Brock's facing the Hardy Boys, basically beating them in a handicap match. Like, you had all these different guys who like are having that opportunity to sort of elevate themselves, and like, no surprise, like the two singles matches I mentioned, like they were among the best on the show. I think you had that Hell in a Cell match as well with Triple H and Jericho, which right. is a little bit different. But I'm just like, yeah, like this was kind of proving the point that, okay, you can have some of these guys really, you know, starting to elevate themselves into a little bit of a different tier. And I think that's where, like, initially when they did the draft on this particular Raw, like, you could tell there was going to be an adjustment process. But I think eventually, again, there are obvious ups and downs, but you did start to see sort of a very clear picture of, okay, we don't have Austin, we don't have The Rock the way that, you know we were going to have them years before. Like, we do have to maybe somewhat, not necessarily take a shot and push some of these guys all the way just yet, but, you know, it was, like you mentioned, this entire year of 2002, like, there are a lot of memorable moments from 2002 that don't involve what, you know, before had been just your true top stars. You're like, some of the more memorable moments come from the guys who are elevating themselves into a different level, you know, whether it's Jeff eventually having the ladder match with Taker and like all that. I think that was sometime this year. And so, yeah, just all those things like that. You're not getting them probably unless you at least take the risk and try this and see how it works.
2002 is like it's a batshit year for this company. Like if I were to tell you on New Year's Day that in this year you'll get Hogan coming in with Hall and Nash, you're going to get this brand extension. You're going to get the call-ups of Orton, Cena, Brock. Shawn Michaels is coming out of retirement. We're going to sign Eric Bischoff. We're going like it's just all these things that happen.
We're going to change the name of the company.
We're going to change the name of the company. Have you ever heard what Hot Lesbian Action is? Katie Vick. Like 2002 is such an insane year that you look back on for this company. Like it was certainly like in terms of just newsworthiness, like 2002 is certainly up there of the, past decades of just impactful things that happen in this company. Just the idea of doing a nostalgia run with Hulk Hogan is something in this whole year. One question I had just to wrap up our discussion on the draft is how you felt Chris Jericho had landed here. This is a week after he's dropped the title to Triple H. They do the triple threat match on this show with Stephanie and Hunter. And he goes from WrestleMania headliner to pick number 25 in the draft lottery on WWE.com. He was exempt from the on-air draft, so there was that. But Chris Jericho, like this 2002, it is quite the year of Jericho, who ends up bouncing from SmackDown to Raw by the end of the summer as well.
Yeah, like you said, I think the entire concept of how to actually draft people, I think, has always been a weakness of WWE. Because again, if I'm comparing this to sports, like you're not seeing the 92nd best player necessarily drafted before the 8th best player most of the time. But like, yeah, it just felt like for him, like you said, coming out of obviously a main event where, at the time, even just they couldn't win. Like no matter how good you weren't going to top what happened before with Rock and Hogan. And then you kind of see this show in particular, and like it's just so, again, sort of glaring maybe about, kind of Triple H's role at the time, and he's going to get part of this, Hogan nostalgia run and all of that. And to kind of see, I think with Jericho, it was something where he had come off of, being the first ever undisputed champion, like, being able to claim that, hey, I beat Austin and Rock in the same night, and kind of the momentum that he had going into all this. And then, to sort of come out of this and see where things went from there. And we know, like, it's not as though he just fell off the map or anything, but it was kind of an interesting trajectory for him, I would say, kind of in hindsight, looking at this and seeing it. And I mentioned, even at the Judgment Day show, like he loses again to Triple H in the Hell in a Cell match. And so it's just like, yeah, Jericho was one of those curious ones, but man, it's just the roster at the time, like we said, it was clear they were leaning into the Hogan thing, and they were going to run it dry. You still had the NWO there. Austin just eventually is out. Rock's out of it. It's just, yeah. I mean, it was just such a wild picture of guys that either had been at the top or, were going to obviously be slotted in there moving forward for a bit.
Well, Blake, before we let you go, it would not be a full edition of the show without the trivia gauntlet. So, it was March of 2002, and boy, the theater was just roaring. Some incredible releases over this past weekend. Let us quiz you on the top 5 films that particular weekend at the box office in 2002.
Oh my goodness. This is one, like, I feel like music, I was so much more of a music guy at the time versus like, I feel like this was a strange stretch in 2002. And I could be wrong. We're going to find out, but I feel like it was a very strange stretch of movies. So like, I can't even remember, like, was this like, there probably was a Disney movie, I'm sure.
Correct.
Was
At least
this
I think
not
this is Disney?
Ice Age?
Ice Age was number 1. You got it.
Oh, is it number 1? Wow.
That's number 1.
I don't think that's Disney, though.
It's not Disney? Okay.
It's not? I don't know. Yeah.
My mistake. But he got it. Any other guesses? One is a franchise that one Paul Levesque would eventually attach himself to.
We know it wasn't The Chaperone. I don't even know.
Is it Blade?
Blade 2.
Oh, Blade 2.
Okay.
Number 3 at the box office. E.T. 20th anniversary.
Wow.
Number 4 was Showtime, and number 5, Resident Evil.
Ooh.
Okay.
Filmed in Toronto. That would be a weekend I'd probably be staying in. That would be I'd be prepping my my draft expectations. So now we are going to put you on the spot here. Let us turn on the old FM dial from March of 2002. So here we go, everyone.
It starts with
one thing. I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind. I'm designed this rhyme to explain in due time.
That's J-Lo. I don't know what song it is, but it's J-Lo.
Gave you my baby, be mine.
2002, folks. What a time capsule. So you get the bonus points if you can get the song, but all we're looking for is at least the artist there.
All right, so we've got Linkin Park, we've got J-Lo, we've got Nickelback. Man, the third one's going to really bother
That could
me
be one of like 15 bands at the time.
I know, like I'm like, there's so
Is
many
that
sounded
default?
like that.
Is that Creed? Is that? And the
I
answer
know
is
Creed
no.
was going to be my first guess, but I'm like, it's not Creed.
I don't think you will guess the band.
I don't think so either.
This was wherever you will go with The Calling.
The Calling. Okay. All right.
Can you imagine a group of men sitting down and are like, guys, we need to call ourselves something? The Calling is the one that we go to the vote and the majority rules. Like, yeah, we're The Calling.
Yeah. The last one, I have no idea.
This was the, so we had, the first one was J-Lo, her partnership with Ja Rule for Ain't It Funny.
That's right.
Ja Rule also there at the end with it, Always on Time with Ashanti.
Oh, Ashanti, yes. Okay.
And then, yes, in the end with Linkin Park and How You Remind Me by Chad Kroeger and company, Nickelback. So there you have it, 2002 in the flesh. The age game. So we go back to March the 25th of 2002. How old is Paul Heyman and his ball cap covered skullet?
Oh my goodness. Paul Heyman, 2002. I'll say, what is he now? I'll say 42.
Wait, what's your guess?
35.
He's 36 years old in 2002.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, these ages, once you get older, these ages really do hit you.
Really, it's the hair.
The hair is usually the feature. The Undertaker.
Oh, man.
He wasn't 50.
35. I don't know.
His birthday was the day before, and he turned 37 on March 24th, 2002. A young Brock Lesnar. Kind of gave it away there.
He was young. They always brought this up all the time, like age. 20? 22?
24. 24 years old. He gets the call up. Hulk Hogan.
Oh, this is the one that always gets me. The last one was like John Tenta, where he's like just the hair.
Oliver Humperdinck is still the all-timer.
That is the all-timer. Hogan in 2002. He had to be north of 40, right? 40. Please, surely 39, 40. I don't know, 40.
He was the same age as the retiring John Cena, 48 years old in 2002. Wow. So while John Cena is about to, has retired, Hogan's getting ready for another run with the belt.
Wow. Now, there you go. That was a different time.
Let's do one more just for the hell of it. Scott Hall.
Ooh.
Getting ready for his release from the company shortly thereafter.
A man who never had hair problems. Yeah, Scott Hall was, I would say Scott Hall had to be 40, 41 maybe?
43 years old in 2002. Okay. So there you have it. The age game, always a fun one. And the 2002 edition, everybody. Well, Blake, This was certainly a fun trip down memory lane to the first of many, 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 many drafts in the company's history. But you always remember the first. And what a lineup. This really did give you insight into Vince McMahon, work rate freak, Ric Flair, more so not. Look at this roster here. Didn't even talk about Sean Stasiak yet. The Boss Man, just incredible. I mean, your Monday nights are set. Could you imagine the 3-hour edition of Raw with this roster? Holy Christ.
Yeah, that's
I wouldn't have made it. I would have been done.
Work rate, not the strength, I think, of this one. And then you look on the other side and you're like, oh yeah, Maven, Kidman, before Jericho, I know he wasn't eligible, but still, it's just like, I think that's the part I always go back on. Is I'm like, I don't think they understand how drafts work. I don't think they understand that you really try to just go in the order of the skill here, but it's entertainment. So there you go.
Well, Blake, thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate your guest spots here on Rewind-A-WAI. We get to do this again in the future, and we thank you again for choosing an easy watch out of 2002 viewing.
Yes, always enjoy it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Blake, for joining us. And you can catch some of Blake's work over on The Takedown on SI.com if you want to go read some of his work and what they're doing over there at SI.com. We have a piece of feedback here, and it is from the great Jesse from the Six. Hello, lads. I hope I'm submitting this feedback in time. You are in luck, Jesse. You two first reviewed the show back in July 2016. I wonder if on today's episode, as then, John will recount his difficulty watching the show due to a lack of Wi-Fi and an abundance of drilling in his home with an accompanying audio recording of said drilling. No, I had more problems with Daily Motion than drilling in this one, but interesting. John will compare the average viewership of this episode of Raw, over 6 million, to the viewership of last week's Raw, 3 million in 2016. Spoiler, folks, it's a lot less in 2025.
What are we at now?
I mean, it's hard. We don't have like the US viewership, but the best, if you're going by like global Meltzer's breakdowns, it's like live plus like, the week, like it's averaging like around 1 million viewers or so estimated on Netflix. However you want to break that viewership down, but we're getting a global views number. Yeah. And we're trying to get a US viewership number out of that, which is somewhat complicated. John will describe Linda's performance as comatose, and Wai will argue even Shane's children have more charisma than Linda. Halfway there.
It's been a while since we've interacted or seen Shane's children, but I imagine that's still the case. Yeah.
John and Wai will break down the Forcible Entry album, track by track, with John confessing to have attended 2 Creed concerts.
I did not know that, or I had forgotten that. How was that experience?
Not as bad. I
think Creed would be a lot of fun to watch live.
I think that they've had a revival, I think, in these last couple of years.
You ever seen The Calling?
Never seen The Calling, no.
Okay, all right.
John and Wai will describe Hunter's physique as resembling variously an extra planet in the solar system, the Michelin Man, and if he were a VHS, he would be SP.
Scott Putski.
Yes. John will argue that the WWE erred in turning Hunter heel so soon after this, as he was over, and they needed a top babyface. I don't disagree with myself. And both John and Wai will praise the main event. I didn't have too much issue. Like, it was an 8-minute TV main event that the crowd really got into, so I didn't have any issues with the main event. It's like it's the only thing close to a match on this show.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go as far as to say praise, but yeah, I was tolerant of it. Maybe I was a lot more maybe my standard
we're speaking hours after watching like a 3-hour Dynamite that like you couldn't even make the comparison. But in the context of this 2002 show, it's the best of what you're going to get bell to bell.
Just even watching WWE, yeah, the standard is very different. Maybe it was a different time in 2016.
And he asks on... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you, Jesse, for these notes as always.
He says on that 2016 review, John revealed that Austin was ruled a free agent because he had actually walked out on the company the week prior. I'm aware of Austin leaving after refusing to lose to Lesnar, but I didn't know this story. Could you please elaborate? Yeah, like as mentioned, he... Like the lead up to WrestleMania, he was like he's spoken about this, he has written about this, like he was on his road towards like burnout. And listen, it was, you go from Mania the previous year. You're the number one top guy. It's the Astrodome. It's a significant WrestleMania. It's kind of the climax of the Attitude Era. That's largely been built off of his back. And you're starting to see business go down. The heel turn didn't take. And a year later at Mania, you're in this kind of like middle of the card match with Scott Hall. So, you know, things were not great. He was not all that happy. And after WrestleMania, he does not show up and he goes home for like 2 weeks, basically. It's a less remembered one because it's so brief and you don't remember, like, a guy misses a week or two of TV, it doesn't stand out. And there was the larger focused upon one in June, but that was basically the circumstances. And when he leaves in June, they do that episode of Confidential where they get Vince McMahon to do a sit-down interview, and he brings this up, that he kind of like, this isn't the first time that Austin has done this. The first one we just chalked up to, you know, burnout, and they basically like gave him a pass on that one. But it was like, this is not the first time that he has left us hanging. That was Vince's positioning of it. And so that was the story. Like, it's just, he is not on the same page with like the creative direction, where his character's going. And this was sort of a Band-Aid situation where he comes back, but the problems are still there, and they would just deepen in the lead up to June, and that's where the larger fallout occurs. So thank you very much, as always, Jesse. We do appreciate it, and it's going to bring us to the end of this retro look in March of 2002. And Wai, what do we have coming up in Rewind-A-WAI? What is our schedule looking like the next few weeks as we head into the holiday season?
Yeah, so it is the holidays, and you know, the next few Thursdays kind of fall on Christmas and also New Year's. So we will be taking a break from Rewind-A-WAI for the both of them. But of course, next week, Christmas Day, well, hopefully by that point, many of you will have listened or will be listening to our annual Christmas show, which should be there. At present time, Kate from Montreal is planning on delivering a Collision course, talking about the Thursday Christmas Day edition of Collision then. So Post Wrestling Cafe patrons might be able to look out for that. And then we'll be back with Rewind-A-WAI on January the 8th in the new year. And that will be a very special edition of the show because it will be another watch along with our very good friend, Brandon from New Jersey.
Oh dear. What are we going to be watching?
We are going to be watching, of course it is January, and it being Royal Rumble season, we are going to be watching, again, Royal Rumbles. And this time we're going to be doing two of them. Royal Rumble 1990, taking us back to an early 90s period. And then from the mid-90s, Royal Rumble 1995. So 1990 and 1995 are our picks. We'll be watching these live, and those of you who are choosing to watch on video, you can have the option of doing that. Might not necessarily be able to live stream the video itself, but these are both matches that are available on YouTube as part of either WWE Vault or WWE's own YouTube channel. So you should be able to listen to us and hopefully sync along. But if not, hopefully you enjoy the conversation and discussion as we watch both Royal Rumble matches from 1990 and 1995.
All right. So look out for that with Brandon from New Jersey on deck next in the first review of 2026. We're also going to be doing some reviews in the coming weeks, some WWE shows, a 2002 show, a 2011 show, and a special retrospective that are always a lot of fun to do. What performer will it be? Well, we will be talking about that in the coming weeks as well. So Christmas show will be out next week. If you want to get your last-minute submissions in for the jingle contest, forum.postwrestling.com. Post your jingle in the thread so that we can listen to it on the show and adjudicate. So that is all in the next week, and we will say goodbye with our thank yous to our guest today, Blake Lovell, Brandon from New Jersey, Robbie Eleanor, Jack Stevens, Martin Minka, David Mitchell, Jesse from the Six, Tyler Crane, Robert Holzhammer, Ryan Charco, John Kleinchester, Alex from Quebec, Mahmoud Almardi, Jake from the Windy City, David Porgas, Chad Olson, and
Bruce Lord, Chris from LA, Brent Nickel, Andrew McDonald, Alex from Portland, Robert Cowie, Amar Kishan, Kenny, Jason Hagholm, Neil Flanagan, Don from Naperville, Kishan Amarali, Miguel Hippolito, Drew, Sean Levine, and Cameron Simon. Thank you guys for being a part of the Espresso tier.
We thank all of you on the Espresso level and all patrons here on the Post Wrestling Cafe, helping Post Wrestling continue for another year as we head toward 2026. Wai, always a pleasure. I'm glad that we could go all the way back to 2002.
Thank you, John. As always, looking forward to the next one.
All right. So pump up the calling, and that is it for us, everyone. It's time to say goodbye.